Hi, everyone. Welcome. Woo! Oh, there are a lot of you joining. Okay. Hello. Hello. My name is Sam. I'm the founder of the Color Palette Studio. I am so grateful that you are all here. I'm going to give everyone just a second to pop on. I'm going to share my screen. Go ahead and say hi in the chat box. I really, really hope that you can. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. If you came to the last workshop, you know that the chat did not work and it was a very weird Zoom setting that we had to turn on. I'm so happy that you can chat now. This is great. Oh, we are going to have so much fun. Okay. Deep breath. I'm going to share my screen and oh, we just have so much good stuff to get through today. I can't wait. It has been like set my mic is awesome. Thank you. Okay, so it is a Rode mic. I don't know if you've used one of these before, but they're like the mic itself is like this thing, and then this is just a mic stand. But I painted it because it came all black. It was like this black plastic. And I was like, I feel like I could make it a little more fun. So it is painted and glittery, and it makes me very happy. Happy, almost ready. I know it does look like a paintbrush. Yeah. And I made this even before I started the color palette studio. And now I look at it and I'm like, oh, well, I should have just looked at my mic to determine like what I should do. Okay. We have so many folks in here. Let me check the time. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Yeah, we're gonna get started because there is so much good stuff to get through. My name is Sam. I'm the founder of the Color Palette Studio. I am so grateful that you are all here. We have a really fun workshop today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to pair fonts with color palettes. I started the studio with the idea that I was going to focus exclusively on color palettes. Like I thought it was just going to be colors. But as I've been working through things, I've realized that color palettes and fonts are just like such good buddies and they deserve to have their time together. So I decided to make this workshop. I polled the community a couple weeks ago and asked you what you wanted to learn more about. And fonts and color palettes were like top of the list. So this is in response to what you wanted to do a workshop on. Okay, so just some tips, some like general guidelines. And I'm not your teacher. Like, I'm not, this isn't like an order. I'm just, trying to set the vibe here. You can put your phone away. You can close your inbox. Like, we have 1 hour here. It is jam packed with good, awesome information. So I want you to get as much out of it as possible. You can take notes, but I'm also going to send out the recording and slides later today to answer someone's question in the chat. So this is all going to be coming to your inbox. So you don't have to like remember everything. And I am so happy that I can see your questions and comments in the chat box. And I've also got Chris, my partner and our developer, who is on chat. So close my inbox, don't tell me twice. Chris is on the chat. He's here to answer your questions, to drop links if needed. And, I just want to take a quick second to say, like, we can all chat with each other. We can chat with one another. Let's make this a kind place. Let's make this, an empathetic, great place to be. And if anyone is not being great, Chris might have to kick you out. So please don't make him do that. But I mean, it's designers. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Okay, I have a little poll here. Let me throw this up. Oh, where are my polls? Okay, I'm sorry. Which role best describes you? So who do we have in here? Do we have students, hobbyists or personal use, designers, business owners or managers? I really would love to get a better idea of like who we've got in this room. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it looks like we have mostly designers, about half designers, and then the rest are students, hobbyists, business owners. Okay, great. So we've got a good mix here. I think that's really awesome because we're going to get some really unique perspectives, especially in the chat. So we're going to be able to like understand, how other people are using fonts in different ways. Okay. And because I know this community so well, I'm just going to tell you right now, the font I use is Mabry Pro. I use regular and medium. So if you are wondering during this presentation what font I'm using, I'm just going to tell you on the front end so that you don't have to wonder. Okay. And in the chat box, can you tell me where you're calling from? You don't have to be too specific, but just like city or state or country, like where are you calling from? I just want to get a feel for like where everyone is. So cool. Barcelona, Ohio, Illinois. Marissa, I'm originally from Illinois. How fun. Dallas, Germany, Denver, Sweden, Detroit. Isn't this so cool? India, Louisiana. Like we're all just coming together to celebrate fonts and color palettes. I'm still scrolling. There's so many. Wisconsin, I went to UW. Okay, so cool. So I love this so much. I love that we're able to come together. Fonts and color palettes have this like universal connection. Everyone uses fonts and colors. And so I'm just so happy that we're all together today. And I would love to know, what's your current favorite font? Like, is there a font that you have a total crush on? Is there a font that's making you want to cheat on your brand fonts, or a font that you use for your brand that you love? Glammy, Open Sans, French. Oh, French is fun. Uh, cool. Wow, there's so many. Montserrat, Futura, a lot of sans serifs in here. Poppins. Poppins always gets a lot of votes. Helvetica, Jen Wagner's Promenade. Jen Wagner, I love her fonts. Poppins, Poppins. Okay, tons of sans serifs here. Leto, Proxima Nova. Ugh, I love Proxima Nova. Okay, so we've got a good range here. I'm seeing a lot of serifs, but mostly sans serifs, which is very good. Okay, I want to kick things off with an introduction. I'm Sam. I'm a graphic designer and color palette expert based in Nashville, Tennessee. I make tools and resources to help brands create perfect color palettes and font pairings. So my dream, and what I get to do, is I get to like absorb and research all of this information and then create tools that help you make your lives a little bit easier and help you make informed decisions that feel easy and don't take you nearly as much time as they used to. I have the best job. I love playing with fonts and colors. I have this project is like 5 months old now, and I have never been happier. And I just want to, on the front end, say thank you for supporting this and for being as excited about fonts and colors as I am, because it's just the best. Just the best. Okay, so we're going to kick things off with some typography basics. Now, I know that we have so many designers in here. I don't want you to like dread this part, because some of it is going to be information that you already know, but we do have folks in here who don't know, maybe what you know. I'm going to be brief. This is going to be like a high level overview of typography basics, and it will go quickly. So let's first talk about typeface versus font. A typeface refers to a style of lettering, and a font refers to an individual version of that typeface. So in this example, like Playfair Display is the typeface. It's like the overarching style of lettering. But a font is Playfair Display Medium. So it's like one of the versions of the typeface. So it's an individual style. And I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to be using the phrase fonts because it's just more natural for me, but I should be saying typeface. I've been a designer, like content creator for a couple of years. And I always get comments from folks who are like, you should be saying typeface. And I know that, like, I absolutely know that, but fonts just rolls off the tongue a little easier. So if you hear me saying fonts, just know that usually I mean typeface. Okay, so we're going to first talk about some different font categories or typeface categories. There are so many, but I just picked a few to kind of go over in this workshop so that we could like get started. We've got serif, sans serif, display, script, and monospace. And like I said, there are so many more, but this is just all I have time to cover today in this brief overview. So serif fonts feature small lines or decorative strokes at ends of their letters. And these kind of have like a more traditional, formal, or classic appearance. And the serifs are actually these little things here. Do you see like at the end of the A, the capital A, or the lowercase a, just these little bits at the end of the long lines? Those are actually called serifs, which is where the term serif font comes from. But there are also sans serif fonts, and these are literally characterized as not having those little serifs at the end of the letters. So if you notice, there's no little tails or decorative elements here. And sans serif literally means without, without serifs. So that's what the font name means. These are very simple letters. They have a very modern and streamlined look, and we are definitely going to explore more of like how this is a vibe lately. Yes, the recording will be available, Brooke. Okay, and then we have display fonts. Display fonts are designed for use at larger sizes for headings or advertisements. I would call display fonts like you're funky, you're a little bit extroverted. Sometimes they are also serifs and sometimes they are also sans serifs, but display font is like an overarching category of your more extroverted, fun, abstract fonts. And then we have script fonts. Script fonts mimic handwriting. And these are a wide range, which we're going to dive into. But like some of them are like fancy calligraphy style fonts, and some of them are like casual handwriting style fonts. But script is generally something that a person could have written on a piece of paper. That's a script font. And then monospace fonts, also known as fixed weight fonts, they give the same amount of horizontal space to each character. These are very common for like coding projects. So if you have any experience with like CSS or JavaScript, typically the fonts used in those programs is a monospace, and it's just because that equal width makes everything line up in a really pleasing way. They sort of look like that typewriter effect. That's what these fonts tend to look like. Okay, so now we're going to dive into some of the psychology of typefaces. Now, fonts can influence our psychology, sometimes through memory and sometimes through some associated meanings, meaning when we see a font, we like remember something that we didn't really know that we associated with that font. So I'm curious, in the chat box, how does this font make you feel? Just one word, two words, gut instinct. How does this make you feel? So the first comment was stressed, nauseous, unsettled, dizzy, anxious. Uncomfortable. Oh gosh, I am sorry to do this to you so early. Okay. Well, it's like a trippy font. Make it go away. Tequila shot. Okay, let's get this off our screens. But isn't it funny? Wouldn't you not want to use this for your brand project because it just made all of us feel like, ugh. Okay. Okay. How does this font make you feel? Does this also make you feel nauseous? No. Elegant, fancy, pretty, regal, posh, old, elegant, luxurious, fancy, sophisticated. Okay, same. Like I see this font and I feel like if I see this on a menu at a restaurant, I'm going to be shelling out some money for that dinner. Like this is an expensive looking font. Out of my price range, totally. Okay, how does this font make you feel? Fun, urban, skater, friends, funky, cool, artist, TV show Friends. Well, this is the font from the TV show Friends. So if it reminds you of that, you are right on the money. And I think this is a great example of how a brand or a project can use a font and it can universally make you think of that project whenever you see the font. That is like my goal for any project is I want the font choices and the color palettes to be so perfect for that brand and so iconic that whenever anyone else sees that font in the wild, they're like, oh, I think of that brand. That's the dream. So there are some general psychological things that come up based on different font types. And brands know this, brand designers know this. So serifs tend to represent tradition, respectability, elegance, formality, and authority. So they say, like, we know what we're talking about, we're established. And you see a lot of news publications use fonts like this, magazines, anyone going for like a high knowledge, high trust position or brand can use serifs to deliver that message. Now, sans serifs have a totally different vibe. Sans serifs make us feel modern, clean, approachable, innovative, and minimalistic. And you can see some logos here, Google, Airbnb, Meta, but honestly, it's like a fun activity. If you look at any major tech company, I'd say 80% of them are using like a very basic clean sans serif font for their logos. It just says we're modern, we're simple, we're innovative. It's a vibe right now. And I think it's going to be really interesting to track this and see like, okay, in 20 years, is that still the case? You know, do sans serifs feel dated? But for right now, they feel very modern. And script fonts. Script fonts make us feel a little bit of elegance, some creativity. They give a very personal touch. They make us feel romantic and nostalgic. And here are some great logos here. We've got Kleenex, Coca-Cola, Disney, very creative brand, Disney. Kleenex, I mean, what's more personal of a touch than like something that's touching your face? So we've got Coca-Cola with this like nostalgia, this romanticism. So if you're going for that vibe, a handwritten or script font can be your best friend. And then finally, display fonts. These represent uniqueness, creativity, personality, boldness, impact. Lego is a very good example of this. And another one that I find really fun is OG slimes. I don't know if you're like me, but I got really into slimes this year. I might be so late to it, but I've been following OG slimes on TikTok and I've gotten like 10 of their slimes and they're just so fun, especially if you like sensory stuff. But their branding is a really great example of how to use display fonts in a really like smart and strategic way. So if you want like some fun display branding, OG slimes is a really fun one to check out. Now, there are psychological impacts within each type of font. So, we were talking about serif fonts and like what they represent, but there are also subcategories within serif font that I think that you should know about. One quick example I'm going to give you is script fonts. There's so many different like vibes of script fonts. So you can go with like an elegant script font. You can go for a nostalgic script font. You can go for a personal script font. Looks like your best friend just wrote something on a note. Or you can go for like a rustic script font. Like I would picture seeing this on like a whiskey bottle or something. So these overarching general psychological impacts can be broken down even further into specific types of fonts. Now we're going to talk about how to customize fonts, which is something that is so important as a brand designer or a brand. When you're building a font menu, you should decide on font customizations and you should stick to your plan. So the best thing to do is to create a list of rules and understand that you are going to follow these rules and use them throughout your brand project. So I like to make the rules once and then go back and always reference the rules that I've made. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can customize these rules. The first being letter spacing. Letter spacing is the amount of space between each letter. So this is an example of low letter spacing, this is regular letter spacing, and this is high letter spacing. So just the amount of space between each letter you can customize. Now, line height is another thing that you can customize. This is the space between lines of text. So right here in the middle, you can see this is regular, meaning it's, as the font comes as a default. And then you can also decrease it to push the lines a little bit closer together. And you can increase it to make them a little bit further apart. Another thing that you can do is customize the font weight, meaning how thick the font is. So regular is in the middle here, and then you can make it thinner, also sometimes known as like hairline, and you can make it bolder. Sometimes it's known as semi-bold, bold, or extra bold or black. So the more weight you add, the thicker it is. And you can transform the font into different cases. So you can have normal case, which is right here in the middle, where like you've got, the first letter of a sentence is uppercase, proper nouns are uppercase. Then you can have everything be lowercase, or you can have everything be uppercase. And all of these customizations you can set at the start of your project so that you know how each font should be used. Now we're going to talk about heading fonts versus body fonts. Wait. Oh, Gracie, I'm excited to check that out. Oh, I'm very excited for this font drama. You know me well. Okay, heading fonts versus body fonts. Oh, I am very excited about this. Okay, so the way that I explain heading fonts versus body fonts is with an SNL analogy. So think of your heading font like the host of a Saturday Night Live episode. So in this case, Pedro Pascal. And think of your body fonts as the background actors in a sketch. So when you watch Saturday Night Live, if you do, when you talk about a sketch on Monday afternoon, like maybe you're at work and you're like, oh, did you see that sketch? You're talking about Pedro Pascal. The thing that you remember the most is the host of the episode. Now, the background actors in the sketches are great because they're very, very helpful to like round out a scene and make sure that everything works together, but you don't really remember them. You're not supposed to remember them. So that's a good way to think about your heading font versus your body font. The role of your heading font is to catch attention. It's to capture someone's eye and deliver a small amount of information really efficiently. Your body font's role is to deliver information. So it's meant to give more information and make it concise. Heading fonts are sometimes extroverted, but body fonts are always introverted. So what that means is heading fonts can be a little funky. They can be a little out there. They can be a little unique. Body fonts should not be. They should be very calm, very centered, very simple. Heading fonts should match your brand's personality and design style. So these should help reflect your brand. But body fonts, honestly, I might get some heat for this, but I think these should be boring. You don't need to get fancy with your body fonts. It should not be the thing that people remember most about your brand. Your body font should never, ever, ever look like this. Your body font should be introverted. It should be calm. And most importantly, it should be very simple. Now, these are just some of my favorite body fonts. There are so many, and I will get into this in a bit, but here, yes, and accessible. Exactly, Nicole. Fonts like this, let me go back. This is not an accessible font, especially at smaller sizes. So you want your body fonts to be introverted, accessible, easy to understand, and read in large amounts. Here are some of my favorites. A lot of body fonts are free. So if you go to like Google Fonts, you can find a ton of very, free body font examples. But then there are some that are a little bit, I would say, bougier that you can invest in as a premium font that just help you stand out a little bit. Oh, Gopher. Gopher's so fun, isn't she? Okay, so here's a good example, a little preview of how fonts can work together. So up here, we have the heading font, We're Oak and Stone. Down here, we have the body font, and then I use the body font for a button as well. So like, I think we can all agree, this is pretty easy to read and understand, right? Now, what if I were to make the body font the same as the heading font? So I just did that. Isn't it so much harder to read? Someone asked what the heading font is. I think this one's called Saint Maria, something like that. It's so much harder to read when the heading font becomes the body font. Like this is just not good, even though it feels like this is on brand. And this is this is my soapbox. Color palettes and font pairings are so important, not just to decide what your fonts are and what your colors are, but actually how they should be used. Because if we were to use this on a website, it is technically on brand. Like these are technically the brand fonts, but they're hard to read. But if we go back and we're like, oh, well, what if we just switch it up and use the proper font in the proper place? It's easy to read, easy to share. So good. Yes. Websites with body font that is unreadable is hard. It's hard as a reader. And it's hard on the brand, I'm sure, because they're going to sell less or book less. Now we're going to talk about accent fonts. Accent fonts are like bonus fonts that aren't really heading fonts or body fonts. They are sprinkled throughout the brand as an accent or like supplemental option. So these are just like the sprinkles on the sundae. You don't come to the sundae for the sprinkles. Maybe you come for the ice cream, but you enjoy the sprinkles. They're nice. So here's an example, that same example as before, but we've just added a little accent font there. Super simple, adds a little extra personality, and it works well with the heading font. Exactly. If we're going, okay, so Estefania, the accent font would be like the SNL cast members. So like you're going to remember them, they're good, but like you really remember the host. But then you've got the SNL cast members, and then the body font are like the background actors who you never even know who they are, unless you're like related to them. Not me screenshotting to steal fonts. Taylor, yes, that is me to a T. I can't tell you how many font screenshots I've had over the years. Okay. Oh, we are going to talk about subheadings. Don't you worry, Allison. So before we wrap up accent fonts, should you add an accent font? Only if you want to, but don't feel pressured to use it all the time. So that is one of the biggest things that I see working one-on-one with clients is they think, okay, I have this accent font. I have to use it, on every page of the website, or anytime that you look at like a marketing material, it should be there at the same frequency as my heading font. I don't think so. I think your accent font is like truffle oil. Like use it sparingly, use it, gently as you need or as you want, but it does not need to show up at the same rate that your heading font does. Now we're going to talk about subheading fonts. A subheading font is typically less prominent than a heading font, but more distinct than body text. And you can use it for subtitles or section headings. So here's a good example of like what a subheading font can look like. Up here, we've got a heading font. And then down here, we just have these subheading fonts. So this is just like a smaller version of your heading font. You've got your body font down here. So it just says, like, if you have 5 seconds to look at this, you're probably going to walk away with knowing that, okay, to order a jacket, you got to choose a style, send a size, and print and ship. And then if you have more time, you will digest all of this information. But the subheading kind of delivers like the sum of the information. Thanks, Chris. Chris hasn't even seen this presentation yet. Okay, 3 ways that I choose a subheading font. So the first way is to alter a heading font. So sometimes I will take whatever heading font I'm using for the brand and I'll make it just a little smaller and maybe make it have all caps or some letter spacing. Another way is that I will add a new font. So I'll just find a new font that works well with the font family and just like maybe grab a monospace font or something. And then sometimes I will alter the body font. So I'll take whatever body font I'm using for the brand and I will exactly add a different weight or make it all caps or something. Yeah. And I'm curious, do you tend to do style 1, style 2, or style 3? Or option 1, 2, or 3? 3, yeah. 3 is kind of my go-to move. I will like I've been known to do like a Proxima Nova bold with 5% letter spacing, but I put some visuals together so that you can kind of see what each one of these looks like. So this is option 1. If this is your heading font here, option 1 is to alter a heading font. So just make it a little smaller and maybe like change the case or add a little spacing between them. So this is like one way to add a subheading font. Another way is to add a new font. So in this scenario, I just chose a monospace font and added that in here. And I mean, it looks fine. Like it just has a different vibe to it. And then option 3 is to alter a body font. So in this scenario, I took a body font and added a little space between each letter and bumped up the size. So you can still tell there's a hierarchy, but it has just a different vibe to it. Now we're going to talk about how to create a brand font hierarchy. Your brand font hierarchy is the font version of your color palette. This is your rules and regulations for font usage for your brand. And one of my favorite quotes about things like this is make one decision to save thousands. I heard this from Jack Butcher, who I think was quoting from someone else. And Jack Butcher runs Visualize Value if you follow them on social media. But it basically means decide something on the front end while you're building your brand, and then you won't have to overthink it down the road because you've already made that decision and you know what the decision is. And so I think one of the kindest things that you can do, whether it's for your own brand or if you're working with clients, one of the kindest things you can do for your clients is to make these decisions that will save them time from not having to decide in the future. So here is my very generic font formula when I'm building font hierarchies. And I come from a world of web design. I kind of got my start as a designer by doing web design and web development. So the way I think about them is I would say web development first or web design facing. So there are 4 different types of headings that I like to create. And then I have 3 different types of paragraph fonts and then an accent font. Now, I don't always have all of these. I say I use an accent font maybe 50% of the time. I really don't always I don't always use it. But generally, I will have something between heading 1 and heading 4 and paragraph 1 and paragraph 3. And here's what that actually looks like when we're connecting like the types of fonts we use with how they're being used. So your heading font is going to typically be headings 1, 2, and 3. And then your subheading font is usually going to be heading 4. And as we just learned, that can be either your heading font or your body font or a new font. And then your body font is going to be like paragraph 1, 2, and 3, just at different sizes. And then an accent font is just going to be its own thing. I hope that this is clear. I added this like 10 minutes ago because I just thought it would be good to have that visual aid, not 10 minutes ago, 10 minutes before I started. So here are some examples of real brands that I've designed so that you can kind of see how these font hierarchies look on live websites. Like, because there's one thing looking at them on paper like this, and then another thing when you see them like used on a website. So the first one is Beach Reads and Bubbly. This is a book reviewer, Katie, who's just such a delight. She does these awesome book reviews. But these are her actual fonts. So the way that we use them is heading 1, heading 2. We did an italic on heading 3. We did an all caps version of the heading font for heading 4. And then we did paragraph 1, 2, and 3. And then a fun little scripty accent font. This is one of my best friends, Taylor, who is a lash trainer. I get to do all of my friends' websites, whether they want me to or not, which is very fun. They usually do. But this is what we did for her. We use this really fun Louise font. We've got heading 1 and heading 3 are the same. Heading 2 is that font, but italic version. We did a monospace for heading 4 and then paragraphs 1, 2, and 3 with a fun scripty accent. And then finally, this is Not Sorry Art. This is Sari right here. She's an artist based in Austin. Her stuff is awesome. I actually have one of her pieces right behind my computer. It's just so fun and colorful. But she really wanted to go for like this bold, funky, abstract vibe, which I was completely on board for. So here we have how we use heading 1 and 2. Now this font is a little bit funky and I would say hard to read at small sizes. So I didn't do anything below heading 2 for her brand using that font. So we brought in another font that I would call like a subheading font for heading 3 and heading 4, and then paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. I hope that this is helpful for you to see. Now, some things to keep in mind. First, you want to make sure that you are taking a lot of time to focus on contrast and legibility. Make sure that your fonts are legible, and I recommend putting your designs at 50% scale so you can make sure that you can still read them. So you can literally just like adjust your designs to make them 50% as big as the normal screen size are, because you should still be able to read everything at half size. And then cohesiveness. Make sure your fonts work together. Your heading font, your accent font, and your body font should all look like they more or less belong together. I would say you don't want anyone competing for attention too much. You don't want 2 or 3 things competing for attention. You should have like one main character and then everything else is kind of a vibe. Like it would be really awkward if there was like, not to keep bringing up SNL, but if there was a cast member that was like definitely trying to steal the host thunder, that would just not be appropriate or comfy to watch. So think of that when you're building your fonts. Okay, how to pair fonts with color palettes. This is what we came for. And like, I so wish that I could have just started the workshop here, but I hope that all of this prep has made this a little bit easier to understand, because now we're going to be talking about how to actually use fonts with our colors and like dive into the meat and potatoes. Now, I am so curious. I have a poll. Let me figure out how to throw it up. Okay. Which do you design first? Do you design the color palette, the font pairings? Do you do them at the same time? Or for you, does it really depend on the project? I'm going to leave this up. Oh my goodness. Oh, my mouse froze. Can you guys hear me? Oh. Okay. Uh, oh, wait, I have okay, sorry. my mouse like froze. That was not a fun time to do that, but I have a wired mouse, so I'm good. As a designer, I have a trackpad, I have an Apple mouse, and I have a wired in mouse just for emergencies like this. Okay, I'm gonna stop this poll. Okay, most of you said the color palette. 46% of you, share results. 46% of you said that you design the color palette first. 17% do font pairings, and then 28% said it depends. Isn't that interesting? I did an Instagram poll a couple days ago, and that was a very similar response. Most people said they do the color palette first, but a lot of them said like it depends, or I do them at the same time. So here's the official answer. It really is up to you. This is the journey that I take. Now, I did not go to graphic design school. So this is just what I've done naturally over the years and how I find works best for my client projects. And based on the strategy that I've studied, this is what I prefer to do. First, I like to craft a brand personality. So I like to figure out what the vibe of the brand is, what their overarching personality is. Then from there, I like to choose a design style, whether that's making a mood board specifically for that client or going with a design style that's like universally understood, like a retro 70s design style. And then from there, I like to build a color palette and choose a font pairing. Now, these are not in a line. So I'm not saying first I do colors and then I do fonts. I say I choose a design style and then I tend to do them at the same time. Now, a good way that I like to explain this is that your color palettes are like a film set and your fonts are like the characters in a movie. So they should go together. And I have a little visual to help explain this. So I'm using the Grand Budapest Hotel movie to sell this example. If you haven't seen it, it is an absolutely delightful story. I love it. It's a beautiful movie. But this is like the set, right? So if you haven't seen it, this is the set. It's this beautiful pink hotel, very luxurious, very elegant. I think it takes place in like the 1930s or 1940s, this sort of vibe. And think of this set as the color palette. The font pairings are like the characters. So if it had randomly different characters, like if Voldemort was suddenly in this movie, it would feel very jarring and confusing and weird. So make sure that your film set, the color palette, and sorry for saying his name, and the font pairings, the characters, look like they should go together. And to demonstrate this, we have. Oh, is the actor who plays Voldemort actually in this? Oh, wait, is that Voldemort? Oh, that is so. I had no idea. I was so excited for this example, and I don't know why I randomly thought of Voldemort, but now that you say it, I see it. Oops. Well, you know what? That just sells it even better. Okay, well, to demonstrate this point, Chris used Midjourney to create some mismatched set and character images so that you can see how weird it looks when the characters in the set don't go together. So, like, here's Rick from Rick and Morty on the set of Friends. Does not belong, right? And this is AI generated too. So, like, forgive the, you know, some of these are a little odd. But Rick would never be on the couch in Friends. Michael Scott from The Office would never be doing office work or calling Todd Packer on a ship in Pirates of the Caribbean. And Iron Man would look really out of place in Downton Abbey. And don't look too closely at the eyes here, they're kind of creepy. And finally, SpongeBob would be optimistic, but also really uncomfortable to see on the set of Breaking Bad. This would just like not happen. You know, he would be all optimistic and they would be like all panicked and freaking out. It would just be such a weird vibe. I'm so sorry. Okay, so this is just our silly little way of explaining why it's so important that your font pairings and color palettes should stem from the same place. They should look like they belong together. So when you're building your font and color pairings, I hope that you're thinking, is this SpongeBob in Breaking Bad, or is this the hotel manager in Grand Budapest Hotel? Thanks for bearing with me. That was fun to make. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the actual process for building your font pairings. So first, you're going to create a brand personality. Then you're going to choose a design style. Then you're going to choose a heading font, an accent font if you want, a body font, and then you're going to make font pairing guidelines. So this is the like overarching style, but I'm going to go through each step. So don't freak out. So first, you're going to make a brand personality. You're going to create a list of 5 to 10 brand personality words, just like we do for color palettes. So if you were at the last workshop we did in October, we talked all about how to translate a brand personality into a color palette. Anyone here from that workshop? Did anyone go to the workshop we had in October? Yay! Okay, so fun. So we like really did a deep dive in this in October. But the overview is that your brand personality is a set of human characteristics or traits that you attribute to a brand, and it gives it a unique character in the mind of consumers. So when consumers think of your brand, they think of this like personality as a whole. And yeah, I will put together a way for you to watch that workshop because it's very good and it's helpful here. So here are some inspiration words that you can use if you need to come up with some brand personality traits. We have a list of 500 words. Chris, can you throw that in the chat? And you can use this to like craft your brand personality. But essentially, you put together a list of 5 to 10 words that just feel like your brand. And this might be different than how it feels from you, like especially if you're a personal brand. Say you're a creator, like an accountant, and you create content and you're an accountant and that's your vibe. Whatever your brand is doesn't necessarily have to be the same personality as you. So it's really important to put together this this activity and put together a holistic brand personality. Next, from that brand personality, you want to choose a design style that matches that brand personality. So the journey of a font pairing is not taking a personality trait and turning it into a font. So we're never saying like, okay, this brand is whimsical. Like they have a personality trait of being whimsical. So because they're whimsical, we're going to use Tokyo Dreams, which by the way, how dreamy is this font? I love this font. We don't do this. We don't translate personality traits into font pairings, just like we don't translate personality traits into colors for color palettes. After we build the brand personality, we want to choose a design style that matches that personality. Now, design styles are the intentional aesthetic approaches, these visual languages, and these design techniques that designers can use to convey a brand identity. Now, that is a fancy way of just saying it's the vibe. It's like the aesthetic, the vibe that we're going for. Now, some things that can be part of a design style are the fonts, the colors, the textures and patterns, the imagery, the shapes, the elements, the filters that you put on your website. So, like, are they black and white or are they extra contrasty? Like, all of those things go into a design style. Do you use grain in your photos or not? All of that comes from the design style that you're going for. So here are a couple design styles that we put together. We have much more than this, but this is just like to give you an idea of what the vibe is. So you can tell like the Art Deco vibe is a very different design style than, let's just say, a neutral and minimal style. And these have their own fonts and their own colors, things like that, that go with that style. After you choose a design style, you're going to choose a heading font that matches your design style and your brand personality. And you can choose your fighter. So your heading font should reflect your design style and brand personality. And this is where you have some fun. So your heading font is where you say, like, this is our vibe. This is who we are. This is what it feels like to work with our brand. That's what your heading font is doing, showing up to do. And for each design style, there are fonts that work best with the vibe. And so that would be your heading font. So like if you think back to that artist, like we're not going to use a very simple serif font for her heading font because she just has this like very fun abstract vibe. So for that, we're going to use an abstract font. So let's think of like a psychedelic design style. Here are some heading fonts that match a psychedelic design style. So there are just certain fonts that tend to match it. Now, they might not all work for the same brand, but this is like a general vibe that we're going for. Okay, I'm still confused about the formula. Are the fonts the same on paragraph 1, 2, and 3? Oh, yeah, that'll be in the recording. Paragraph 1, 2, and 3 should all be the same font. Those are body fonts. Okay, but I hope that this makes sense, that there are certain fonts that match certain styles. Like this is psychedelic. Now, there are a couple different ways to search for fonts. When I was building this presentation, I was like, this is something I wish I would have known a long time ago. So the one way that you can search for fonts, whether it's on like Google Fonts or with a certain typographer that you like working with, or like Creative Market or a source like that, you can search by font style. So that would be like serif, sans serif, handwritten scripts, things like that, like the stuff that we went over in the very beginning. But the way I really like to search for fonts is by font descriptors. And these tend to really stem from the design style that we're going for. So like vintage fonts, psychedelic fonts, Art Deco fonts, sexy serif fonts. Like that's really what we tend to want to do. We want to be as descriptive as possible when we're matching our font to our design style. And yes, I have definitely searched sexy serif fonts like a lot, like very recently. So then after you've chosen your heading font, you can choose an accent font. Now you'll want to choose an accent font that adds some personality to your heading font. And I just want to say, you don't have to. You don't have to. Even I don't do it over half the time. But if you want to, you do that after you choose an accent font. Accent fonts add some sparkle. An accent font is a distinctive, often decorative font that's used sparingly to add emphasis or a little bit of extra aesthetic appeal to specific parts of your text. Personally, I tend to do a lot of like scripts or handwritten fonts for my accent fonts. I tend to work with a lot of female founded brands, and it just adds this little extra touch of like personality to it. Now, an accent font tip that I have is to see if your heading font has any additional styles, ligatures, or sibling fonts. So if your heading font has like any buddies, you can use that as an accent font. So like here's a great example. Louise Display has an italic version. And so I would maybe use the heading as Louise Display and the accent as Louise Display Italic. Would your subheading font be the accent font? It could. It could. I would say your accent fonts are more likely to be a little bit extroverted, and I like my subheading font to be very clean and clear. So I tend to not do that too often. I tend to have my subheading font be a little bit cleaner and clearer, and my accent font has a little more room to be extroverted. Accent fonts should not really be used with too much text. And then after you've chosen a heading font and an accent font, you can choose a body font. Now, you want to choose a body font that complements your heading and accent fonts. But like we've talked about, body fonts tend to be very, very introverted, simple, and easy to read. So you just want to choose a simple sans serif or a serif that matches the vibe of your heading fonts. You basically want to just try not to mess up what you've done already. It's pretty easy to choose a body font. And like I said, here are some of my favorites. There's so many. What I probably would keep in mind is like, if I'm using serifs for the heading, if I like, okay, Jen Wagner is a good example of this. She makes, I think, editor's note as a heading font, but then I think she also has like editor's note. I forget what it's called, but it's like for copy. It's like for body font. So she made another version of her font that can be used like a Times New Roman at very small scale. So that's the only time I would consider doing that. But most of the other time, I would try to find like a very simple sans serif or simple serif, usually Google font, something very, very simple and clean. Yes, a pear Sue is one of my favorites. After you've done that, you can create a font pairing guidelines because remember, we're selecting fonts, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily how they should be used. So we need to make actual rules. We need to sit down, write down how the fonts are going to be used, and then we know in the future, which is just so helpful. So here are some things that I like to define when I am building my font guidelines. I like to define what the font is, and I like to preview how it looks. And then I designate different roles. Oop, that was a typo. I made an edit this morning and that I'll fix that. But I like to say what the font role is. Like, is it heading? Is it subheading? Is it accent? What's the font family? What's the font weight? Sometimes it's like hairline or regular or medium, bold. Then I like to put what the style of the font is. Is it regular or is it italic? And then I like to put what the letter spacing is. Sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's 10%, 5%. Then I put line height. 100% is like normal. Like I'm not going to mess with it if it's at 100, but I might want to add extra or take some away. And then text case. Is it normal case? Is it uppercase? Is it all lowercase? Because if I define this on the front end, then anytime I make a social media graphic or make an update to my website or launch a webinar, I'll know how to use my font and everything is going to match so perfectly. So here's that process in a streamlined order. First, you're going to choose a brand personality, so 5 to 10 personality words. Then you're going to choose a design style that matches that personality. Then you're going to choose a heading font. So like here's a heading font that might match this bright and warm brand personality. Then you're going to choose an accent font to add some personality. So like Keenstone might be a good one. Then you're going to choose a body font that complements your heading and accent fonts. So I might choose a Pear Sue Pro. And then I might create font pairing guidelines. So I'm going to decide, okay, Recoleta is heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. I'm going to do my body font as a subheading for heading 4. And then I'm going to make my body font examples here. And then I'm going to add my accent font. And that's it. That's the whole process. How does that feel? Is this similar to your process? Are you learning something new? How many fonts should you have? I would say between 2 and 4. Yeah, wildly helpful. I love that. So good. Okay. And then here is that overview again. Oh, I'm so glad someone said I went to design school and I'm still learning so much. That's great. That's great. And this is just such a fun example of like, if you want to deep dive and like nerd out on something, you can, and like you can learn a lot more than, you might be able to if it's like a generic form. Like, I don't think fonts or colors should just be glossed over so easily. I think that if we take a deep dive into them and like really try to make them as great as possible, all of our brands are going to be so much better. Okay. I can hear some of you now. You're going to say, Sam, we didn't even talk about colors. Like maybe you thought that this was going to be a webinar that was literally all about colors and then be like, okay, here's the color palette. Here's the exact font that should go with that. I know, like I really struggled when I was building this workshop because I wanted to spend a lot of time talking about colors too, but I love colors and we don't actually directly match colors to fonts. So we're not saying, here's the color palette, here are the exact fonts that should go with that color palette. Maybe if you have a lot of expertise in this area, you can do that. But for most of us, that's just not how we're going to do it. The color palette and the font pairings should stem from the exact same design style. And that style or that journey, again, is making a brand personality, choosing a design style, and then from there, we're going to build a color palette and we're going to choose font pairings. That's the journey. Now let's test it because I always love, I like when I build workshops like this, I kind of make a thesis of like, okay, here's what I think is true. And then I spend weeks prepping it and making sure that I can like defend this thesis. So I'm going to test what I think is true. So we are going to take a design style. Let's go with neutral and minimal design style. Now here's an example of a color palette that could go with that design style. And over here are some font pairings that could go with this design style. So here's like a heading font, an accent font, and a body font. These look like they could go together, right? Like we've got a neutral and minimal look over here, and we've got a nice like neutral, I would say slightly elegant vibe over here. But what if we wanted to change the colors? What if we didn't want these colors, but we wanted to keep the fonts? We could go with these colors because they still fit this neutral and minimal design style. So you should be able to change the colors to also go with the design style and keep your fonts. But let's go back and say, okay, we actually really liked those colors, but we wanted to change the fonts up. We don't want to go for like a vibe that's as elegant. We want to go for a little bit more approachable and modern. So we could do that. We could switch up the fonts. And as long as these fonts have a neutral and minimal vibe, they should work fine because the colors and the fonts should look like they come from the same family. So just like remember we were talking about script fonts and how it could be like handwritten script or nostalgic script. That's sort of how we can go with our brand personalities. You know, is it going to be like an approachable neutral and minimal, or is it going to be an elegant neutral and minimal? All of that can come through with your fonts and colors. As long as your font pairings and color palettes stem from the same design style, they should always match. They should go together. Oh, okay. To help you with this, I made you a new tool. I have been working so hard on this. This is the font pairing guide, and you all are the first people to hear about it. This is an expertly curated database of font pairings, and I've sorted them by price, by design style, and by functionality because I like to make tools that make your jobs so much easier. So this is a tool that I made to help you create a brand font menu in 60 seconds or less because none of us have time to be like wasting time overthinking or what I found to be really common, like second guessing our choices. I want you to feel super confident in your choices. So I'm going to give you a little tour of this new tool. It's the font pairing guide. Okay, so first, we've got different design styles in here. So it's a Notion database. And in the first step, you get to choose a design style. So not only do you get a mood board to kind of like understand what the color vibe is, what this looks like, but for each design style, there's going to be a description of what that design style is, some of its history, and I included visual elements. So like what types of like fonts, colors, textures, patterns, what do we see with this design style? And then values that we associate with that design style. So all of these have their own energy to them and we're going to break them down. And honestly, I use this when I'm working one-on-one with clients because I will take them through this. I'll just scroll through it and be like, are there any that you're really relating to? And we'll make sure that the values align with their brand values. And it's just all so fun. So then after you've chosen your design style, you can choose a heading font. So you can go into any of these, open it up, and let me go Cool Beach because I really love this one. So in this one, you can view the mood board, and then you can actually view specific information about the fonts that tend to go with that style. So like for Cool and Beachy, we want to go with relaxed scripts or coastal displays, all this. And then this is what I included because I needed this, so I just made it for you. Here's a list of keywords that you can use to find fonts like this. So this can be used for so much more than just finding fonts like this. You can use this to find patterns or textures or illustrations that match this design style. Chris, can you drop the link into the chat, please? I'm so happy that you guys are loving this because I poured so much love into this. Okay, so then after you have this, you've got a list of free fonts that you can use. And actually, I have a discount code that I'm going to share with you. So hold on, give me 5 minutes. I have a discount code. But you've got free fonts here. So these are all fonts that you can either find in Google or on Behance or something like DefFont. And I will link the font and I will let you know if it's available in Canva or not. And then this is my favorite. you've got a list of premium fonts. So these are fonts that I have curated for you, font recommendations, I should say, that I've curated that match this vibe. So this is where you can shop for your heading, your subheading fonts, or your heading, your accent fonts. You can just go through this list. And again, this is great if you're working with clients because you can show them this and be like, do you like this style font? Do you like that style font? It's just going to save you so much time. And then you can choose your body font. I've put together a database of over 30 of my favorite body fonts. They are some free, some premium. And with each one of these, I put a note if it's has a free version available and or if it's available in Canva. And you can sort by sans serif, by serif, by free fonts, or available in Canva because I want this to be easy and fun for you. But wait, there's more. And then I put together a template of font pairing style guides. So this is, I'm so glad you guys love this because I really love this. This is the font pairing style guides. These are available in Canva. These are completely editable. You can edit the colors, edit the fonts. Maybe you when I grow up. It's so sweet. And you can do it for like if you have 2 fonts, if you have 3 fonts, if you have 4 fonts, you can have a hierarchy. You can do a preview. This is great to either use on its own or to copy and paste and add to your own brand style guides if you'd like. And I included this because it's something I found that I wanted to do with my clients, button styles. You can tell them how their buttons should look, how to work with their fonts and their colors. And this is just everything all coming together. I found that if I don't give people rules about their button styles, they like freestyle with it. And, you know, I'm chill, but I'm not that chill. Like I like to have rules for my button styles. Okay. So you are the exclusive folks who get $30 off this new guide. Chris, if you could drop that link back in the chat. The font pairing guide literally launched within the last 24 hours. Oopsies. And it is $30 off until midnight tomorrow with the code I love fonts. So I love fonts, $30 off. That is the cheapest this tool will ever be. And it's going to get free lifetime upgrades. So you know that I'm not that chill. I'm going to be adding new stuff to it. I'm constantly searching out design styles and trying to improve these tools and make them better. So it's going to get lifetime upgrades. And you can get the bundle of the color palette builder and the font pairing guide for $144. So if you want to get our the tool that we sell, that is our best seller, the color palette builder, you can add this to it as a bundle for $144. Do you need Notion to use this? No, it's just a link. It's just like a URL link that you can use. And I thought it would be really fun to build a brand together. So I want to give you a little overview. We just have a little bit left. If you have to hop off, like I want to respect that, you can, but I'm also going to go over trends and predictions and some common font mistakes. So we're going to do a quick live demo of actually building a color palette and brand together because I thought it would be really helpful for you to like see. So yeah, Andrea Chris, can you send the builder link to the chat? I'm so happy you love this. Okay, so we're going to build a brand for Spark Joy. Spark Joy is an online therapy resource for millennial and Gen Z women. And I went ahead and prepped a brand personality. So the brand personality for this brand is optimistic, it's bold, it's motivating, it's friendly, approachable, trendy, supportive, and diverse. So this is like the vibe that we're going for. Yes, the color palette builder and the font pairing guide are 2 separate tools, but they work really well together, and I'm going to show you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open the color palette builder, which is one of our tools, and we are going to choose a design style that matches this personality. So I don't feel like pastel. I do feel like bold and vibrant is the vibe that I want to go for this. I could go cool and beachy if I wanted. I could go cosmic ethereal. I could go bright and warm, but I think bold and vibrant is the style I want to go for. If we're like a disruptive online therapy resource, I think bold and vibrant is a really fun part. Yes, all this will be part of the replay. Okay, so we're going to go with a bold and vibrant style. So I'm going to use the color palette builder to quickly build a color palette right here. So I'm just going to choose a couple colors. I'm going to choose 2 light colors. I'm going to follow this color palette formula. I'm going to add some vibrant colors. Let's make this fun. Let's see, like trying to picture this on a therapist's website. And I want a pink. What kind of pink do I want? No, I want this one. Yeah, I want a very vibrant pink. And then I'm going to choose at least one dark color because remember, we got to have some contrast. Okay, so here's a palette work in progress. So I can click show compliant pairings, and now I can view all of the high contrast pairings here. And I can change them too. So if I'm like, you know what, I didn't actually really like that like aqua blue color, I'm going to get rid of that. Maybe I'm going to add this blue instead. So then I'm going to click show compliant pairings. And then, oh yeah, this is more of the vibe that I want to go for. So then I'm going to select my favorite high contrast pairings because maybe I like don't want some of them. Like maybe I don't want that pink to be used as a background color for some reason. But oh, I love this. And I love this. Okay. And then I'm going to click show palette and I'm going to view the full color palette and I'm going to view my favorite high contrast pairings. Okay, so I'm just going to check the brand brief again, make sure that this matches the vibe. Like, okay, we're going for an online therapy resource for millennials and Gen Z. I do think that they would relate to this. I do think I didn't mean to include a Gen Z purple. And yeah, someone said it's a little pastel still. You know what? Let's add another bright color. Let's go with a vivid pink. Oops. Yeah, I think we could go for a pink. Pink sounds yummy. Yeah, I think that adds a nice vibe. Okay, so now we've got an updated palette. Now let's find some fonts that match this bold and vibrant style. So I'm going to choose a heading font and I'm going to go to bold and vibrant. And I'm going to choose a heading font. So I could choose something free. But let's just say I have a little budget to work with. So I could go with something like this bubble letter vibe. But it is a therapist, so I want it to feel like a little bit professional, but like fun professional. Like I want it to be like a chill, cool therapist. I kind of like this one. I think this would be a fun font to work with. So I'm going to test it out and type something. So I'm going to be like, welcome. Or now I'm going to say we're spark joy. And then we're going to, oh gosh, it's hard to type one-handed. Okay. This is fun. I think it's a little funky and I think it's a little still professional and readable. Like it's not too out there. Okay. So this I think would make a fun heading font. And then if I wanted to make an accent font, do that one. Or I kind of like the idea of like a handwritten font because I think it'll feel like an accent like you deserve to heal. Let's try that. So it'll feel sort of like a friend writing you a little note. So we could do this as a heading and this is a fun little accent. And then I'm going to choose a body font. And this is simple, boring. Yeah, I think this would definitely connect with Gen Z. I'm going to go with Poppins. Who doesn't like Poppins? So then this would be our full suite. So we've got our color palette here. Bright, poppy, definitely not what we would think of as like traditional therapy style colors. And then this would be our heading font here, this Daigulk. And then this would be our accent font, fun, handwritten, whimsical. And then this would be our body font. And I would put all this together in a brand font guideline, but I'm not going to make you watch me do that. Okay, cool. So that's how we would do it for a brand. That took what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to do the color palettes and the fonts all together. And these tools are lifetime subscription. So, or lifetime access. You get lifetime updates, no more of a subscription, one-time purchase. So now let's go over some 2024 font trends and predictions. So let's talk about like what we're seeing, what the vibe is. First, I'm seeing a lot of 80s and 90s editorial fonts. So think like your minimalist sans serifs, your confident serifs, bold headline style fonts. These have a soft nostalgia to them. So they don't seem like outdated. They just seem a little bit revived. And Jen Wagner, I would say, is like one of the leaders of this style. Her stuff really matches this like editorial, elegant style really well. Another style or trend I'm seeing a lot of is this nostalgic comfort. So these are sort of like soft serifs that have a sort of like retro 70s vibe to them. They're kind of chunkier serifs that have this like soft edge to them that make them feel a little bit comfy. And I would say brands who use these have a great way to like relate to their audience, to give a personal touch and feel very like comforting and connecting. I know I really do love this nostalgic comfort vibe. Okay, this one I am seeing so much. These are what I would refer to as ligature serifs. These are mixing together these very fancy wedding style scripts with modern, sleek serif fonts. This is such a hit right now. I don't know if you're seeing these the way I am, but I think that they are just so fun, so sexy, and just like kind of a zhuzhy, sleek way to add some personality. And then finally, a ton of 3D, experimental, and abstract fonts. Pinterest just released yesterday their 2024 trends, and bubbly metallic fonts are absolutely at the top of the list. And I've been seeing that a ton. Well, I saw that last night and I was like, oh, I'm glad I included that in the presentation because this style font is very, very popular, especially with Gen Z right now. But these like funky, unconventional letter forms are having a huge moment right now. And they just reflect so much brand personality in them. So if you're looking for a heading font, you can have a ton of fun with some experimental ones like this. Whoops, I accidentally clicked one. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to wrap up with some common font mistakes and how to fix them like a pro. So mistake number one is overcomplicating the font pairings. So the problem is using too many different fonts can create a cluttered, inconsistent look. So like if this is the font hierarchy, this is chaotic. This hurts my heart a little bit. This is just too much. It's doing too much. It's confusing. Please don't do this. The solution to mistake number one is to stick to 2 to 3 fonts, one for headings, one for body text, and maybe an optional accent font. This just is going to make your life so much easier and help you be more consistent and clear. Mistake number two is ignoring contrast. This is something that I see so common, especially with folks who don't have a design background. If you have a lack of contrast between your headings, your subheadings, and your body text, it can make your designs feel flat and unengaging. So like over here on the right, this example, this is hard to tell where your eye should go. Like you don't know what the heading is. It's just hard. It's hard to know what to pay attention to. So you do want to have some contrast, and that is a solution. Use varying font sizes, weights, and styles to create a clear visual hierarchy and guide the reader's eyes. And mistake number three is disregarding the brand identity. So the problem is that someone might be choosing fonts that don't necessarily align with the brand's personality or message. They might just think, oh, I like this font. But if it doesn't align with your brand personality, then it won't work. Like if the brand personality we're going for is bright, bubbly, youthful, energetic, and bold, I would say this heading font doesn't really do that. It doesn't feel that way. It feels more mature and elegant. And I would not call it like bright, bubbly, youthful. So the solution to this mistake is to select fonts that reflect the brand's character, values, and design styles. So again, always make sure that you're going personality to design style and then font pairings and color palettes. Okay. Oh, I am so relieved. I know we went a couple minutes over. Thank you for sticking around. There's just so much I want to cover. But what questions do you have? I'm going to take a couple minutes to answer some questions. And while I do, I'm going to throw these up there. So if you need any of these links, they are right here. You've got the color palette builder and the font pairing guide here. Okay. Question time. How do you pair fonts with logos? This is a really good one. So sometimes folks want to know, should your heading font and your logo font be the same? And I have personally found that I like the heading font and the logo font to be different. I like the logo font to be its own thing that stands out on its own. And if you look at a website design where the heading font and the logo are the same font, it's easy to actually miss the logo. Like you can miss it when you're looking on a website because you just think it's a heading. So I would say make sure that it looks like it comes from the same family, but they do not have to be of the same style. Okay. How do you think about a font and a logo? Are you using the same font or a different one? You've just answered that one. How much time a person needs in selecting colors and fonts? So our tools are designed to help you knock them out in, I would say on the conservative side, like 15 minutes or less. In 15 minutes, you should have full color palette and full font guidelines and rules. If you're doing them by hand, I would designate about an hour to 2 hours for each, an hour for color palettes and an hour for font pairings. How to work with cool fonts that don't have several weights. So one thing you could do is you could add weight. You could add stroke to the font. So like if you use a design program like Figma, you could just add stroke, which is like an outline, and you could make your own weight. Or you can find a font that's very similar that has more weights to it, which is what I tend to do. What are tangible examples of where accent fonts can be used? Okay, I can do that. We are gonna go, I'll show you someone's website who does it. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on her name. Jenna Kutcher. I was looking at her website recently and I was like, oh yeah, she uses accent fonts. So Jenna Kutcher's website, we've got these heading fonts here, heading font, accent font. This handwritten script, that's an accent font. Okay, I think Show It websites are doing something really weird because that's alignment thing. I think it's a Show It thing, but like that's an accent font. That's an accent font so that's what I would say are accent fonts. Like they're just very lightly sprinkled into a brand. Thank you. I'm so glad. Okay, how do you work with predetermined brand colors? If you have to work with a predetermined brand color palette, I would move backwards and I'm going to put this back up. I would see if that brand color, like if you have a color palette that someone's giving you, I would work backwards to see what design style that those colors match. And then I would try to like start from there. So if they have a color palette that they're locked into, then just go to the design style that looks closest to it. So like minimal or like retro 70s or I don't know, like pastel coffee house, and then just try to find fonts that match with that. How do you approach using colors on the headings? Just make sure that there's high enough contrast. You can use the color palette builder or our color palette tester to do that. You just make sure that your contrast level is at least 4.5. Okay, I'm gonna answer one more question and then I'm gonna let everyone go and I will try to answer more via email if I can. Okay, buying a font from Creative Market, do we need to buy from eWeb or which one for designing websites? I'm not the best person to answer that, but Creative Market does have a link. I'll include it in the email that explains different font licenses and which one you need. So make sure that you're buying the right license for your project. Like most people would need desktop and or web. Oh, Sarah, I will make sure that that is fixed. I don't know why the invoice wouldn't work. Sorry about that. But thank you. Thank you for getting it. Pinterest trends. Okay, yeah, Pinterest, like if you have a Pinterest business account, they literally just announced the trends yesterday. If you check your email, they're in there. But I read a lot of books about fonts and colors. This whole part of my bookshelf are books about fonts and colors, and I read a lot of blogs, and mostly I just pay attention to brands, especially like innovative, cutting edge brands who are sort of tapping into this like I would say a younger market only because they know it's a growing market, and just seeing what they're doing, that informs a lot of what I recommend doing. Okay, I don't have any more time. I just want to sincerely say thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me my dream job. I am having so much fun. This is just the best job in the world. And I want to say thank you to Chris. Chris can hop on here. Chris has been doing all the IT. Chris has developed every single one of our apps. Wave, hi, Chris.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you and love you. And I just love developing for this community. Such good vibes.
Yes, this is so much fun. The workshop recording and the PDF slides are going to go out via email later today. And if you have any questions, let me know. But for now, we are just going to be adding new stuff to the font pairing guide and the color palette builder. And we're going to continue to make these tools as amazing as they possibly can be for you. Okay. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your week and a great holiday season. Thank you. Thank you for this amazing job. Okay. Bye.